Look, we're all thinking it. We all know it. We, the Detroit Pistons, are the worst team in the NBA. After that initial Cade Cunningham boost when he entered the starting lineup, and we were 3-4 with Cade in the lineup. Oh, we're 4-5. Oh my god, we're nearly 500 with Cade in the lineup, so practically we're a playoff play-in team. That's what we are with Cade Cunningham in the lineup. Well, we're now 4-12 when Cade plays. We've lost 7 in a row, which is the tied longest losing streak alongside the Orlando Magic. And despite Cade having a career night against the Portland Trail Blazers, who didn't have Damian Lillard, we got blown out. Yeah, so that's why we are the worst team in the NBA. That's what I want to talk about. Now, if you think I'm going to come on here and talk about just all the negatives, no, you don't know me well enough. There'll be some positives. There will be some positives. I mean, the draft is a positive. I don't normally do too much related to the draft, but I'll probably keep an eye on it this year because we're getting a top pick. Oh, yeah, there'll be a top 5 pick pretty much guaranteed because this is going to be a team with one of the worst 3 or so records in the league, with Houston now starting to find some form. Not going to complain about the record, not going to complain about the losses. Like, you got to understand, I'm not coming on here to say, oh my god, we're losing too many games, it sucks because of that. No, but there are some reasons for concern, should I say, and there are some reasons to just talk about the Pistons, regardless. So let's do that. Now, before I do that, if you could drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, or if you haven't subscribed already, that's all I got to say. It helps out a ton. That's it. But anyways, let's start with the negatives because, as the video is titled, the Pistons are the worst team in the NBA, so I kind of have to clarify why they are, which, if you've watched any of the games, do I really need to clarify? Now that the Houston Rockets are looking like a decent team, the Orlando Magic and Pistons are probably the two teams tied for the worst, but the thing is, the Orlando Magic have had injuries. It's all minor details. At the end of the day, they're not good. They're not good. They're young. It's fine. I'm not panicking about them being the worst team in the NBA. It just is what it is. But what I am not panicking about, but there's a lot more room for concern, Saddiq Bey. It's just got to be. Now, we're not getting carried away. We're not saying he's not going to be a good player for this team because we did see him play at a very good level on both ends of the floor for an entirety of a season. And now it's been 20 games where he's played at a bad level. Let's be honest. He's played, if it wasn't for that rookie season, if this was his rookie season, well, he would not be getting the same level of minutes. He just wouldn't. But we saw it through 70 games last season where he proved himself to be a good shooter, a good defensive player, and, well, they were the main 2 parts of his game, but you hoped he would be able to build upon that. But it all starts with the shooting for Saddiq Bey, because if he's not shooting the ball, well, the rest of his game kind of collapses, because that was always what he was supposed to be coming out of college. That's always what he was in his first year in the NBA. He didn't show a ton of other things in terms of playmaking or mid-range or attacking the rim. It was mainly 3-point shooting, which is fine because that's obviously very important, and defense. Defensively, he's still been okay. That's fine, but the 3-point shooting under 30% from 3 on over 6 attempts a game, sometimes he just looks hesitant, even with open shots. He's not even got any conviction behind a lot of these shots now. And if you think it's a result of the offense, sure, the offense isn't amazing, and I'll touch on Dwayne Casey a little bit later, but Saddiq Bey, statistically, is getting a ton of open threes. Statistically, he's averaging over 2 open threes a game and shooting under 30%. Under 30%. And then if you look at wide open threes, which is the defenders aren't supposed to be even within 6 feet wide open, he's getting a ton of those looks as well. And if you look at guys getting the same amount of shots from wide open threes as Saddiq Bey, he's right at the bottom of the league in 3-point percentage, alongside Cade Cunningham and Frank Jackson. The Pistons have 3 of the top 10 volume wide open 3-point shooters in terms of least percentage. That makes no sense. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. Basically, on wide open shots, the Pistons can't make anything. They can't make anything. Now, am I saying that's going to continue? I don't know. I can't tell. Cade Cunningham looks like he started to find his rhythm if that Portland game is anything to go off. Frank Jackson has been a lot better. Saddiq Bey looked like he was maybe finding his rhythm, and then the last few games, it's gone back to this, which is someone who's just not really an offensive threat. He's not much of a playmaker. He's one of the worst finishers in the league. Statistically, he is one of the worst finishers in the league, again, when you account for his volume. And if his three-point shot isn't falling, regardless of where he's on the floor, because he's not making them fall when he's taking players off the dribble, he's not getting to his mid-range spot, and he's not hitting open threes. So what is he really doing? He's playing decent defense, and that's kind of it at the moment. Again, this video isn't me saying, oh, Saddiq Bey is washed, he's a terrible player, he's never going to get back to the level he was in year one. No, this happens to players. Tyler Hero, obviously, it was kind of a different circumstance, but a lot of people laughed at him after his year two, and then we've seen what he's done in year three. There's countless examples. It happens all the time, particularly for someone who had such a strong rookie season, and in a team that is really struggling offensively. There's some reasons to believe that it'll turn around, but it is concerning. And I guess another negative, I don't think he's regressed to the level Saddiq Bey has, but looking at Isaiah Stewart, arguably the three biggest negatives this season were the three biggest positives last season: Jeremy Grant, Saddiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart. That's disappointing. Now, would I say Isaiah Stewart's a major negative? No, I don't think he's really regressed as a whole, because defensively, I've still been pretty impressed. Rebounding the ball, he still does that well. He's still blocking shots at a decent rate. He's still shown off some versatility defensively. I still don't mind what he's doing as a whole. But what he has regressed clearly, which is no debate, similar to Saddiq Bey on a different level, he's not shooting the ball at all. From mid-range, from three-point range, point blank period, he can't shoot. He's not making any shots, which is completely different to last season, where it looked like, did we get a stretch big? Did we get someone who could be, like, obviously not the athleticism of Bam Adebayo, but in terms of offensively, that guy who could get to the mid-range, who can maybe stretch out to the three-point line? Not saying he was ever going to be at that level, but did we get someone like that as a gem in the draft? That's what it looks like, because his touch looked really nice. He was hitting players off the pull-up a couple of times. Three-point shooting was nice. As a whole, offensively, it looked like there was definitely some room to improve, because he was never going to be the best pick-and-roll lob threat. He's just not big enough. He's not athletic enough. He's 6'9" without some crazy vertical or some crazy wingspan. So he was never going to be the biggest pick-and-roll threat, which I'll touch on in a second, because that is kind of hurting our guards right now. But if he could have that mid-range shot and that three-point shot and even take players off the dribble, which he did on occasion last season as well, then that would probably make up for it. Unfortunately, we have seen nothing. Like I said, defensively, he's been solid. Sometimes he gets outworked, like a few times against Yusuf Nurkic. He was just undersized. There's just guys that are bigger than him, and without having help with the likes of Kelly Olynyk on the floor, there's not much you can do. There's not much you can do. But offensively, that's been disappointing. And then Jeremy Grant, if I were to just touch on him, I think we can clearly point to what's happening with Jeremy Grant, which happened last year, but just to this extent, it's getting frustrating. He takes too many tough shots. He's not that guy. Like, you're not that guy, Jeremy Grant. You're a very good player. You're very good at cutting to the rim, attacking aggressively, getting to the free throw line, and normally knocking down open threes. This season, he's been a little bit down, which is a very, very consensus theme across the team, which a lot of people want to blame on Dwayne Casey. And I'm not saying he's exempt at all. I would be fine to move on from Dwayne Casey. I don't think he's the coach of the future. But at the same time, the Pistons are statistically, and when you watch the game, they're creating quite a lot of open looks for guys that are supposed to be good shooters, and they're just not making the shots. Could we run more pick and rolls for our guards? Yes. Do we have a pick and roll big? Not really. But could we still do that? Yeah, okay, we could do that. Could there be better ball movement and better timeout plays? Because sometimes the timeout plays and just the inbound plays are a little bit questionable. Yes, yes, yes. Do I think Dwayne Casey is the coach of the future? No. But am I going to blame a lot of these struggles on Dwayne Casey? Not really, because, well, Jeremy Grant, just touching on him, he's just not doing what he should, which is being aggressive. Look at the Lakers game. If you want to look at any Jeremy Grant games from this season, Lakers game, the second last game that we played, that's all you need to look at. Attacking the rim aggressively, getting to the free throw line, and knocking down open threes. That's all. That's all. Stop taking these mid-range pull-up shots. I know the offense isn't always great, but let Killian Hayes drive into the defense and kick it out, because that's what he's been able to do recently. And against the Lakers, he did that really well, and it benefited Jeremy Grant, because that's what he is. He's someone that should be spending most of the time off the ball. That's the reality. And we saw that. And we may as well touch on the two biggest positives, in my opinion. It's Killian Hayes and Cade Cunningham. Now, statistically, you might look at it and think, well, they're not really shooting well. They're not really playing at the level that warrants them being positives. If you're watching the games, Killian Hayes has taken a leap defensively. I've already talked about that. Offensively, I think he's starting to find something there. When we're looking at someone who's shooting 90+% from the free throw line, he's improved as a three-point shooter. On wide open threes, he's shooting 46%, which is completely different to these other guys. He just needs to get more of those looks, which would be nice. Maybe he can come off some more screens. And in fairness, he doesn't always take those threes when they're on offer. But if you could get some more looks and they could look for him more often in those corners and coming off screens or dribble handoffs, I'd like to see that as a shooter, because someone who shoots this well from the free throw line has the touch that he has on his passes and his playmaking and his instincts. I just can't imagine he's not going to be, at the very least, a serviceable to good to maybe even better than that three-point shooter. That's what I want to touch on, because if he continues to be that as a shooter, the game's going to open up for him as a driver and as a passer and as a playmaker. That Lakers game was a great example of what he can do as a playmaker. He's been pushing the ball in transition, which I've liked to see. Defensively, as I've mentioned, he's been good. He's been versatile. He's locked in. Him and Cade Cunningham are going to be a very good defensive backcourt. If there's one thing we can guarantee with their size, with their intensity, they want to defend. They consistently defend. There's no question marks over that. They're already a good defensive backcourt, and they're only going to get better. But offensively, I also think they can work together. That hasn't changed. If Killian Hayes can continue to be a good three-point shooter, which has regressed to an average/below average right now, which is good for this team. But if he can be a good three-point shooter alongside Cade Cunningham and show off what he can do as a playmaker, then I think these two guys can work together. Cade is a pretty effortless fit. He can play off the ball. He can play with the ball in his hands. He can do pretty much anything on the floor. And we saw that against Portland. We saw that. Now, the most positive thing about Cade's performance against Portland, nothing really looked out of the ordinary. Nothing was out of the ordinary. He's taken those shots and made those same exact plays countless times. Sometimes they don't drop, but for the most part, Cade is unbothered. He gets to his spots. He takes shots that you like, apart from when he's going up against Anthony Davis. For whatever reason, he likes to test Anthony Davis, and that doesn't work out. But for the most part, Cade does what he wants on the court, and it's just been a matter of his shot not falling. I know that sounds so simplified, and he does make some silly turnovers, don't get me wrong. He's a little bit lethargic passing the ball at the moment, so that unbothered style of basketball, while it is good, and while I think that's going to hold him in good stead, as we've seen in late game situations, sometimes it results in some sloppy turnovers. I've seen quite a few. There were a few against Portland as well. But for the most part, he gets to his spots. He's been getting to his spots, whether it's off the dribble, off screens, dribble handoffs, off dribble penetration from Killian Hayes. I like what I'm seeing from Cade, and that performance, I can expect to see more of those. I think we should all be able to agree he looks better with Killian on the team because of what Killian can do as a playmaker, and now he's not someone that you just sag off as a three-point shooter either. So I think he benefits Cade, and we've seen that the last few games where I think Cade's looked better with Killian in the team, which is a positive. Hamidou Diallo, in his minutes, thankfully he's back in the rotation. He's been good for the most part. Frank Jackson, for the most part as well, recently has been a lot better. But apart from that, there's not a whole heap of positives, which is kind of sad. The only positive, well, the clear positive right now, apart from Cade Cunningham, and so I think Killian Hayes is a positive as well, is the high-end draft pick that's going to come our way. The high-end draft pick, hopefully a big or even a wing. I don't care. Just get a high-end pick. That's all I've really got to say.